It's late. The laundrette is empty except for you and the machines. No music, just the hum of fluorescent lights, the quiet churn of clothes. A dryer beeps, a finished cycle no one claims. The plastic chairs sit still, simple, familiar, the kind you'd find anywhere. Always there, always the same. You sit down, one of the countless others who've done the same, and for a moment you feel it. Sonder. The quiet, creeping awareness that this place has lived 1,000 lives before you ever stepped inside. Someone sat here, waiting for their last load to dry before moving to a new city. Someone else sat here in the depths of winter, wearing nothing but flip-flops and Hawaiian shorts. They were here. You'll never know them, they'll never know you, but in some small way, you've shared something. In one-purpose places, that something is the waiting. It's the lacking of anything. And yet, within that nothingness, traces remain. Sonder is the realization that everyone you pass is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. But it's not just about people, places absorb Sonder too. One-purpose places, arcades, cinemas, bus stops, they all exist in a strange limbo shaped by the people who pass through, and yet those people are indifferent to the change that they've made. The same way a rugged old man sitting alone at a bus stop might give you a feeling of Sonder more than a clean-cut businessman is the same reason a bus stop might give you more Sonder than a glassy high-rise. Walter Benjamin says, "To live means to leave traces," and nowhere is this truer than in these spaces. These highly used yet overlooked places collect memories, most of which you'll never be a part of, yet they hold them all the same. Some places feel timeless. An arcade will still be an arcade no matter who presses start. A cinema will still be a cinema no matter who sits in its seats. A train station will keep buzzing under fluorescent lights whether you're rushing to catch a train or just waiting for the rain to pass. They don't adapt, they don't evolve, they don't try to be anything more than what they are. And because of that, they absorb something. Think of Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, a diner glowing in the middle of the night, 4 strangers inside lost in their own thoughts, alone together. The painting is still, nothing is happening, and yet something has happened. It's a snapshot of Sonder. That bar had thousands of customers before these people, and will have thousands after. But for this moment, in this tiny frame of time, it belongs to them. Just like every one-purpose place holds its own version of the Nighthawks. Every laundromat at 2 a.m, every phone booth that you've never seen used and yet looks worn down. Every near-empty bus with a few tired passengers staring out the window. When we use these places, we can't help but leave things behind. Memories, traces, echoes. This is most obvious in public toilets, a place where people go for a single purpose and yet the walls tell a million stories. Hundreds of names, numbers, uninterrupted thoughts. Some nonsense, and some that if said in a conversation would get shut down as pretentious, but in the confines of a nightclub toilet they feel surprisingly profound. It's a one-purpose place, and yet we make it more than that. We always do. Cinemas exist for one reason, to show stories, to let people sit in the dark surrounded by strangers and forget themselves for a bit. That's why abandoned ones feel so different. I explored one in Spain once. The floor was littered with rolls of film, the fire extinguishers had been used up, the seats were covered in dust, but they still faced the screen, waiting. But you could feel it. The couple on their first date, the kids seeing their first horror movie, the person watching the credits a little longer because they weren't ready to go home yet. That cinema had been witness to hundreds, maybe thousands of lives, and now it was just a shell. But I kept thinking, what was the last film it ever showed? The last audience to ever sit in those seats? The last time the projector flickered on? The last scene, the last line of dialogue? The last credit rolling up the screen before the doors shut forever? And they probably didn't even know. Didn't know that they were part of the ending. Didn't know that this was the last time the building would do what it's built for. That's the thing about one-purpose places. They don't announce when their time is up, they just fade, slowly becoming ghosts of themselves, until one day someone walks by and realizes they're gone. To someone, that cafe was where they met the love of their life. That petrol station was where they stopped before moving to a new city. That arcade was where they spent the last Friday night before everything changed. And one day, a place that meant everything to you, someone else will walk by without thinking twice. Sonder doesn't just belong to people, it belongs to places too. And as I sit here listening to the machines turn, a dryer beeps again, announcing that a task is finished. But it doesn't apply to me, because places like this don't belong to anyone. I'm only passing through.